So in today's podcast, we are going to talk about the attitude you need to adopt to win financially. Shout out to Nick Foles and Pat O'Donnell for sending me the gear. Dad season. I am in my dad season. I have 2 little girls. They are my world, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing. For anyone that doesn't know who Pat and Nick are, these are 2 NFL players or ex-NFL players at this point in time. They talk about dad season a lot and the season of life that they're in. And so shout out to you guys. What you guys are doing is incredibly cool. And no, I'm not getting paid to say this, but I grew up, it kind of feels weird. I grew up watching you guys. Nick, I watched you win Super Bowl 52. And it's kind of cool that we've connected after the case. So shout out to you guys and everything you guys are doing. And I think it's a good segue into what we're doing today, because Nick and Pat did not get to the NFL by being passive. They were aggressors, and that's how you win. And so the reason you're losing, guys, if you're listening to this, is because you're too passive. And I've seen this trend on social media as I've, grown a big following and my social media has kind of blown up. I have a lot of people commenting on my stuff. I don't see everything. Like, I try to be as communicative as possible and responsive as possible. But the reality is we have millions of followers. And so it's very hard to see every little last comment. So if you leave a comment on one of my posts of thousands of posts and I don't see it, there's a good chance that you're not going to get reached out to. And so if you say hey, I need help, and it's really passive in nature, it's just on one of my posts, there's a good chance you're being too passive, you're going to lose. But if you come to my DMs, you send me a voice message, you say, hey, I want to get help right this second, there's a high probability that I will help you, or that I'll see it at least at a bare minimum, and I can, guide you in the right direction. And if I don't respond because I have millions of followers and there's a chance that, a message gets opened, somebody calls me in the meantime, I forget about it, whatever the case is, or I can't find it, and you follow up, you probably will have a very high chance of success. But why is that? It's because you're being aggressor. You're being aggressive with everything you're doing. And it doesn't just stop at asking for help in, personal finance. This can be everything in life. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories today about an area of life that I was in during college that I won and I lost based on the attitude that I had and the attitude I used. You're going to probably laugh at this, to be honest. This is kind of a funny story in a sense. But whether you guys like it or not of what I'm saying right now, it's just true. If you've ever played sports, obviously Nick and Pat played sports their whole life, made the NFL. They did not get there on accident. They did not get there by being passive. That's just not what happens, right? You have to be an aggressor and you have to be very aggressive. And so that's how they got there. They competed at a high level. If you've ever been in the corporate world, if you've ever done entrepreneurship or anything that has competition, the aggressor is always going to win, and the world is going to walk and step over the passive people, and you're going to get the back seat. That's just the reality of it. So the 2 stories I want to share the first story from my college time, which there's very few stories I want to share from my college time, or the ones that I can actually remember. And come a long way, guys. But I think it was my first semester, I had a B+. Now, just historically speaking, I was an A student. I got, 3.8, put a 4.0 pretty much my whole life in high school and college. And so my first semester, I had the gen ed class that had nothing to do with my major. It was a biology class. And I think I kind of messed up on one of my tests early on. I didn't take it as serious. I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I ended up with a 87 or 88 or something like that in the class right in the beginning. And I was not okay with a B+, and I wanted an A, and I knew I was going to get an A, and I was going to demand an A, but this is exactly where the story is going. A lot of people would have taken that test, gotten the B+, they would have had the 87, and they would have been like, well, I wish I would have done better, and they kind of internalize it and stuff like that. They're like, well, maybe next time I'll try harder. I did not accept the B+. I said, listen, I got the B+, but the reality is I'm going to get an A in this class before the semester ends. So instead, what I did is I went to that professor and said, hey, I'm going to get an A in this class, just so you know. I'm not going to ask you for the A. What are the steps that you can help me with to get to that A? And so it's the frame of that question and also demand that I put on that professor that got me the A. So as soon as I said that, first off, mentors want to help you. People that come before you that have a lot of success, that see an up and coming, individual, they want to help you. They literally want to. That's their pride and joy. That's what I do right now with personal finance. When I'm helping you guys with finance, I want to see you win. I don't want to see you lose. And so the thing is, a lot of people don't think that's the case. They're like, oh, there's, the people ahead of me are just after money and they don't care about me. That's not true. Like, a lot of us do this because it's fun and entertaining and, really, really engaging to meet with people, and we want to see your wins. And at this point in time, your win lights me up more than any dollar amount really truly could. So this is why I do it. And so when you come to me and ask me for help, I enjoy that scenario. Like, I really, really thoroughly enjoy that, because I know that that student wants to get better. And if I can help with my skill sets and my experience and my knowledge to get that student better, I'm going to do everything possible to do so. And that's exactly what happened in the biology class in college. This professor saw a freshman kid in college walk up to him and say, hey, I want the A. How do I get an A? He's going to be inclined to help me. He's going to want to help me. And so he did. He said, hey, I'm going to give you extra credit assignments. We're going to do, this, and that. And if I'm going to be totally honest, guys, I don't even remember what I did as far as like the actual technical exercises, but I got extra credit, and I got and bumped that B+ up to an A+ by the end of the semester, because I was doing extra work, because I messed up, I lost, it was whatever early on. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to tell him I'm getting an A, and then I'm going to ask him what steps I need to take to do so. And so about the frame, I think this is an important piece of it. If I walked up and said, Professor, got a B+, I'm really upset, is there anything I can do? He might be like, you got to study harder next time. But if I walk up and say, I'm going to get an A, what steps do I need to take to do so? That's a whole different approach to that same exact, response. And he's going to interpret that a lot differently, and he might react differently. In fact, he did. And so I think that this is a microcosm of our society right now. I don't think people do not put the effort in, they get a bad result, and then they just complain. And they do this over and over and over, when in fact you can literally change your entire frame and your entire, persona when you approach life with a much more aggressive stance, and you're going to win big time if you do this. Like, I've done this so many times. There's a national bestseller right behind me. You can't really see it right now. It's over here. The Roadmap to Financial Freedom, A Millionaire's Guide to Building Automated Wealth. That is a national bestseller that came from Wiley, that I told Wiley I was going to write. I did not ask Wiley. I did not say, hey, Kevin, can I write a national bestseller for you? He would have laughed in my face. He'd be like, you're not going to do that. But I told him, I walked into, I connected with him. I did use all my resources. I networked, and I got Kevin's contact, and I told Kevin, I said, I'm going to write a national bestseller. How do we proceed? And that difference in approach is going to change your life in so many ways. I can't even explain it. And so we wrote a national bestseller, because I told him I was going to, because I was so confident in my approach that I don't care what anybody else thinks, says, or does. I know if I want something, I will go get it. And that aggressive personality is going to win every single time, even if you lose sometimes. But I'm going to flip this around. The second story, this is a bad one, is actually after I graduated, I got a call from Deloitte. So anybody that doesn't know my backstory or hasn't been following for quite some time, I graduated school and I worked for Deloitte for 7 years before I started Budget Dog, and started educating and empowering people with personal finance. And so this was a story where I took a different approach, and partly it was because of where I was in life, and I didn't think it was a big deal, but it ended up really biting me. So right after college, I'm studying in my parents' house up in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, for my CPA test. And so I graduated December 2014, and I was going to start my career September of 2015 with Deloitte. So I had this 8-month gap of just study. And if you guys know that story, it didn't work out real well. It took a little longer than 8 months, to say the least. And but during this 8 months, that's what I was doing. So I wake up, I think it was January, maybe 15th or something like that. Somewhere in mid-January, I wake up, I'm studying, I get this call from Kevin Dawson. And so Kevin Dawson was the recruiter at Deloitte that loved me, recruited me, actually seeked me out at one of the career fairs as I was kind of waiting for my friend to leave that career fair. So we got connected. We obviously, so on and so forth from there. And so Kevin calls me, he goes, Brennan, I got a question for you. And my stomach just dropped. I could hear his tonality. I understood it wasn't what I wanted to hear, just based on how he approached the call. Because Kevin's a pretty, happy, go fun, really fun type of dude. And he said, what happened with the D that you got in that last semester? And to give you guys perspective, I went an extra semester to college. I went like 4.5. That's why I graduated December 2014, because I needed 150 credit hours for my degree, or to get sit for my CPA. That's like a requirement in the state of Kentucky, or at least it was at the time when I was doing it. So I needed 150 credit hours at the time. So I went an extra semester. I went that summer. I took some classes, and then I went that last semester. But before that summer, like May of 2014, I already landed the job at Deloitte. So my stupid brain thought, well, I got the job at Deloitte. Who cares what happens the rest of the summer and then also the last semester? I'm just going to kind of have fun, goof off, and just be lackadaisical about things. Well, I had this really weird accounting class that was like not my specialty. I had zero interest, and I'm not going to lie, the professor was a little odd, and very well known to be a little odd on campus, like very different. Let's just leave it at that. I didn't connect with the guy at all. I don't know if he connected with any of his thousands of students over the years. It was a very bizarre class, but that's my fault for not paying attention. And this class consisted of 2 tests. So it was the midterm and the final. And I was like, man, I'll just do decent on both of them, and I'll get a B or C or whatever the case is. Maybe I'll get an A if I get lucky. I'm not going to study that hard. And I took the first test, and I think I got a D. And so I had like a really, really bad grade. And, I couldn't really connect with this professor. I also just didn't care at that point in time in my life. I felt like I already got the job at Deloitte. And I went on to the final, and it was like literally right before I graduated in December. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm just not going to study that hard. I'll get like a C or B or whatever. I'll end up with a C in the class. And, I'll get my job at Deloitte and everything will be fine. And so I took that final, and I think I got like a C. So I ended up with like a 78 or something in that class. Technically speaking, I passed. Technically speaking, it brought down my GPA, but it didn't really matter because no one cares about your GPA after college. And I already landed the job that the GPA was for, and that was much higher. It was like a 3.8, 3.9 when I actually got that. I was magna cum laude or whatever the case, whatever you call it. And I just always had a really easy time with college, but this class in particular, it was just the mindset I went into it with. And I was very, very passive about it. Like, I did not care at all. And when I got the D, for the first time in my life, I was like, I just don't care, because like I've already accomplished what I need to accomplish. College is kind of a stepping stone to the next thing. And I've already gotten to the next thing. So I don't care about what the stepping stone, what happens to it anymore, because I'm already past that. But I wasn't. And Kevin Dawson got word of it. And so I'm starting my career, or so I was supposed to start my career at Deloitte, and I get a call from Kevin saying, what happened in this class? Like, that's not acceptable. And I'm not going to lie, I think I made some things up and kind of, fabricated some things just to get through that conversation. Shout out to Kevin. Much love, man. We've talked since. And, he was accepting of it, and, I justified it away. But that class that I was very passive in almost lost me my career, my starting career at Deloitte. Like, let's just say, like, reverse a couple steps back. Let's say Kevin said, you got a D, that's not acceptable. We are not going to be hiring you anymore. We are rescinding our offer. That could have happened. That literally could have happened. And I got extremely lucky with this scenario to where I didn't really truly lose full time, but I had a really good shot at losing. And that would not have been good. I would have literally not been able to start at Deloitte, which who knows where I would be today, current day, if that would have happened. But it was because I was passive. I didn't care. I didn't go to my professor and say, hey, I want more. I didn't study hard to begin with. And then when I got the D, I just continued on my way. And I think a lot of people are operating like that in life. They're just letting life happen to them. They're nervous. They're anxious. They're afraid to confront people. Whatever the maybe they just don't care. I don't know. Whatever it is that's holding people back from being the aggressor, from being aggressive, is holding you back from winning. And when you start to decide to win, you demand the A, like I did in my biology class, like demand the A. With Wiley, I demanded the national bestseller. I said, I will have a national bestseller. What are the steps to take? I want the A in biology. What are the steps to take? That whole entire frame versus the D I got and just accept it and go on. I didn't even approach the professor. Like, I didn't even care. Like, the difference in that is substantial and is exactly the result I got. I deserved the result I got in both scenarios. But a lot of people are coming to my DMs, or they're leaving a comment on a post or an IG live where, I don't see until 30 minutes after and they're already off the live. They leave a comment and, I get to their comment 30 minutes later because I'm scrolling down answering every single question. And they're wondering why they're not getting responses. It's because they're not aggressive. They leave one little comment on IG live or on my post, and they don't come to my DMs, and they aren't aggressive in their approach. And therefore, they're not going to get the help they need and they deserve. But if you take this frame, you use the podcast I taught today, and you just literally apply it to your life, I can guarantee you, you will have a total 180 shift. You will absolutely start dominating life in so many different areas. This isn't just finance. Like, obviously, we want to take this attitude and adopt it to win financially. But going back to the beginning, dad season, if I'm a passive dad in general, my girls are going to suffer as a result. That's not acceptable. As a father, that is not acceptable. You need to put on for your family. As a father, you provide for your family. That is something that you need to have. You should have in your DNA. It's literally a DNA. It's a biology thing, biological thing. You should be demanding success for your family as a father. And I can't speak from a mother's point of view because I'm not a mother. But shout out to all my moms. My wife, it has the same exact mentality. She will win at everything she does because she's an aggressor. She's aggressive. This is what I want you to take away from this podcast today. Start to change the way you frame your wins and losses. Start to actually take the steps you need to win big time and start to be the aggressor. You adapt this attitude and you will see a 180-degree shift in your life for the better. And I hope you guys take this and use it to your benefit, and I will talk to you guys all soon.
You've been listening to Money on My Mind with your host, Brendan Schlagbaum. If you found value in today's discussion, share it with someone who could benefit from it too. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you never miss a money mastery tip. Until next time, stay passionate about your financial journey and keep taking bold steps towards your money goals.